What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 69 of Nintendo Noise, Flip Screen Games' weekly Nintendo podcast. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Steven Radford.
Hello.
Hello, Steve. What a momentous occasion it is here. 69 episodes of Nintendo Noise.
And it's just the two of us. We couldn't celebrate this with Sierra or Chewy or Max. It's just the two of us.
I know. It's honestly very funny because this is, I was trying to think back on it, and I'm pretty confident this is the only episode of Nintendo Noise we've ever done with just the two of us.
Yeah, yes it is, yeah. Because I've missed some, you've missed some, but we've never had like just the two of us.
And even,
which is cool.
Even like the ones where one of us is out, there's always been a third person. So I don't think there's ever been a two-person episode.
I think I did just one with Chewy once. I'm not sure.
That's probably true.
Can't remember.
That probably happened at some point, but maybe not. If not, it's an
People
even bigger
have to write
milestone.
in and let us know, because I feel like our audience knows our shows way better than we do.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure someone will be correcting us in the comments.
They remind me of stuff that we said that I do not remember at all the time. That's a regular.
It's quite
occurrence.
scary because you can say something and it's just an offhand flippant comment, but you'll be held to account on that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I worry about that all the time. You know how many podcasts we've done? It's like any point someone could be like, oh, you like so-and-so? Well, 6 years ago on this piece of content, you said this. And it's like, you're right. I don't know. Sorry. I'm a liar, I guess.
Also, people can change their minds. Like, that's okay. It's okay to change your mind.
I encourage it, in fact. You should change your mind.
Yeah.
Growth is good, everybody.
I used to think Nintendo shouldn't make consoles anymore. I do not think that anymore.
I did. I was one of those people as well for a very small amount of time, but it happened. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. This week's episode is all about you, the listener. We have a big old bag of reader mail this week, and I'm excited. It's been a while since we've had like a mailbag episode. I do wish we had some of the other hosts here to weigh in, but it's all right, Steve. You and I, we're going to hold it down, right? Of course, the gruesome twosome, the dynamic duo, we got this. You know, we're on top of it.
Yes, and while we're on the topic of mail, I want people to write in more often. I'm planning something for the new year where I want more evergreen topics, and we're going to have a question block, and we're going to pull from a question block, hopefully every episode. So please write in to questions@flipscreen.games if you have an evergreen topic that's just something that's been in your head, either for this show, for the Flip Screen Games podcast, or for the Steam Deck podcast, whatever. I'll be saying this message on all of the other podcasts this week as well. So you're going to be sick of hearing from me if you don't write in.
So just write in and we can stop plugging it.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to kick things off with the start screen. This week's question comes from AV over on the Discord, who wrote in and said, some weird shit goes down and boom, you're an amiibo. What genre of game are you compatible with, and what feature do you unlock?
I also want to know what like theme of amiibo are you? Like, what game are you from? Like, which series? Like, I like to think that I'd be one of the Splatoon amiibos because I think they're the coolest
You want to be a
looking
Squid
ones.
Kid.
Yeah, I really do want to be a Squid Kid. But in terms of genre of game, I think that I would be compatible with if it's me as an amiibo and we're starting like the Flip Screen Games series of amiibos and they're like a separate thing. It would probably be some kind of management sim. I feel like that's where I would land, like something like a 2 Point Hospital or a City Skylines or something like that. Like, I'm a nerd. I just want to be the one that's telling people what to do. And I feel like I would want to give something decent. Like, I'd want to be able to like give you extra gold or something, that you like some extra money, things like that, or maybe some exclusive items. Say for like The Sims or whatever, maybe you get like the flip screen TV or something in your house instead.
And like you go and turn it on and it's just like a little
and it's just
reproduction of the
it's
podcast.
just Ellie on the TV. Yeah. Oh, that would be cool. Yeah, just like me and you chilling out. It's just an episode of Nintendo Noise with the four of us on the TV.
That'd be great. The first place my mind went, I feel like it would be one of two genres. It would either be RPGs or platformers. Like, those are, I think, two of my favorite genres, and they're definitely, when it comes to Nintendo stuff, I think like those are the genres that I tend to gravitate towards the most. And I guess if you want to throw in like adventure game in there as well, because Zelda's like not quite an RPG. Because I could see it being a thing where like you scan my amiibo and then like I am like a special boss battle like in Pokemon, and like I have
You'd
like
want to be a boss battle? Okay, I was thinking you were going to go with like a skin, like a transmog or something, where people get your blue hair
could be
and
both.
the beard and
Could
like
be
the
both.
glasses and stuff.
You know, like it could be
And I
like
think it's going to come with the microphone. Like that's a big part of your identity. It's like the big
it's
microphone.
me, yeah, like or like me holding a megaphone or something. You know, like
I feel like you with the microphone would be like the boss battle. We've got to like we've got to make it loud, Pete, quiet, and we've got to like turn off his
yes,
platform.
that's yeah, exactly. I feel like that would be cool. You know, like I have like a team of 6 Pokemon. Like I pick a definitive team of 6 Pokemon. That have like a
What
competitive
would the
set that I
definitive
make.
6 Pokemon be?
That's a bigger question than I think we have time
Is
for.
that one
Right.
for an episode with Sierra on?
Yeah. Maybe we make that a whole episode. Um,
You've got to know there's someone in there, like right, Bulbasaur, I presume. He's your starter Pokemon,
I'm a
right?
Squirtle guy.
Squirtle, sorry.
You're thinking
Yeah,
Blastoise,
he'd be
probably.
in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like if we're going with like Pokemon that are my signature Pokemon, like he would have to be on there. Yeah, we'd have to have a Blastoise representation. Umbreon would probably be on the list too. That's like been a mainstay in my competitive
I don't
teams,
know
and it's
who
one of my favorite
Umbreon is.
Pokemon. It's an Eevee evolution. It's the black one.
Okay, yeah, we still need to do that episode where you and Sierra just present me with pictures of Pokemon and I have to guess their name
What
and
their
their
name
type.
is? Yes. Yeah. Okay, we can do that. That's a good idea. Yeah, that's we should do that one day. We should do we'll do a Pokemon episode and we'll have everybody come up with like a definitive team.
Because I have no idea what my definitive team would be. I look at them and I'll go, yeah, that one looks cute.
Be
I'll
like,
have
yeah,
that one.
I like Snorlax.
I'll just have 6 Snorlaxes. That'd be fine.
Snorlax, you know, he's got his place. He was a really
He's good
dominant.
to sleep on.
He was a dominant force in the competitive scene for a long time.
He was good in what was that Pokemon Stadium game that we were all playing? The MOBA. What was it called?
Oh, Unite.
Fuck. Yeah, he was good in Pokemon Unite. Like he could like tackle people.
Great tank. Yeah. God, I gotta miss that game. I think about that game every once in a while. And I'm like, I should go back and play more of that game.
It had its moment, and then it really just fizzled out. I feel like that happens a lot with games. I don't know how Fortnite's really maintained longevity, whereas like every other game that's come at it is just like come and fizzled.
I think it's kind of twofold. I think when it comes to like games having longevity, I think there's the perception a lot of times that games have their moment, and then it's like, oh, that game was like, you know, whatever, like who even plays that game, and then there's like a thriving community of people that are still actively playing it, you know.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know what the numbers are like for Unite. I'm not making the claim that it is, but when you ask the general question,
I don't even remember like because it was a big thing when they were announcing new Pokemon that were coming to Unite and things like that. I don't even remember the last time we saw an announcement of a new Pokemon coming.
They made an announcement not that long ago where they added a second map alongside like 2 or 3 new Pokemon, I think.
Okay, so yeah, it's still going then. That's good. I would imagine that was probably in one of the Pokemon Directs. I was just like,
hey, you know, I'm more dialed into Pokemon in general, right? Like I follow like Bulbapedia and like a bunch of random like Pokemon sites on. Excuse me, a little frog in my throat today. Sorry. Over on Twitter, so like I see those kinds of updates probably more than you do. But yeah, so you're a Squid Kid then.
Yeah, I think so. Of the ones of the I'm looking at some of them now, but I also like the idea of just being unique, just like a series of one,
And
right?
you can work in a
Like,
bunch of different games.
yeah,
Yeah.
like you know, I like the Diablo one. It's just a unique thing that isn't part of any other series. It's not like, oh, this is part of the Smash collection, so people want to complete the collection.
Sure. Yeah, I kind of like the idea of us having our own like pack, you know, like it's like the flip screen pack, and then you can just use us in different games.
Have our little logo on the little base that they stand on instead of the Smash logo down there.
I mean,
It's cool.
so we got to make this. We got to get this made. We got to commission somebody to
I
make
bet
this.
there's someone that like the person that did your wedding top. There's gonna be someone that makes some custom amiibos that we can make happen.
I'm sure. All right, so we got a lot more questions to get to here in a minute. But before that, let me just remind you that this week's episode of Nintendo Noise is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of December. They are, of course, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valenz, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Sobi, Mary Berry, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. You're all the reals to the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. And I've been pimping it for the last couple of weeks, so I don't feel like I necessarily need to go into all the detail. Go watch the Persona 5 Game Club if you haven't already. Episode 2 is just a few short weeks away, so make sure you keep up and go ahead and get to the end of Madarame's Palace. Yeah, I know. I just had that moment. Zaid messaged me today and was like, hey, man, like I'm about to get to the end of the section tonight. I'm going to have all the footage for you up in a couple days. And I was like, oh, boy, I haven't started it. I gotta play, yeah.
Yeah, I've not started it at all, so I'll get it done. I've been too busy playing other stuff and just with life.
You'll get through it. It's not that much. We still got a couple weeks.
You said that last time, and it was 13 hours.
I mean, it's probably another 12 hours, but whatever. You got 12 hours.
Yeah, I know, but at the moment, Resident Evil Village is calling out my name. But that's for another podcast. I'll talk about that.
You better finish this game, Steve. If I cram to get this done and you don't, I'm going to lose it. All right, let's jump into our next question. This one comes from that doc guy who wrote in and said, how do you feel about people who get review copies and then either spoil or post all about the games before release? Walkthroughs, how-tos, secrets, etc. This question was motivated by an experience that Doc had that I think is like the poster child for how not to do it, right? Where it was a thumbnail on a YouTube video that was literally filled with spoilers.
Yeah, he did it. He did a great artist's impression of it, which will be the thumbnail for this video. So if you want to have a look at the thumbnail for this video, because I'm going to use it as I said I would.
Oh boy, yeah, that'll be good. That'll be really good for our click-through rate.
I'll be there for a while. We'll see if the CTR is like way too low. Then yes, I'm swapping it out.
So your goal for this episode is for no one to see it. Okay, got it.
People will see it.
Yeah. So I mean, that I think to me is, that's not cool, right? I think if somebody makes content, right, like you said, like walkthroughs, how-tos, secrets, all that kind of stuff, I think if you present that in a way where, it's there's no spoiler in the thumbnail, right? You know what the article is that you're clicking on, and you're actively seeking out that information. Hey, that's totally ethically clear as far as I'm concerned. But I think when people just like blast it out on like their Twitter account or whatever, that is something that I am not a fan of. I think that a lot of people kind of want to rush to be the first person to tweet out this cool thing and, and get that engagement. And, I understand that. But I think those are always the things that end up bumming me out, because I end up in situations like Doc, right, where I don't want that information and it just gets shoved in my face, right? And it's even worse with things like TikTok, right, where like if you're just scrolling and you just hit and it's like somebody just has a spoiler of something that you didn't want to see a spoiler for, then like, well, oh well, right? Like you had that moment blown for you. So when it comes to that kind of stuff, I'm not a fan. I want people to have a spoiler alert, some kind of warning, some kind of
it's strange to me that YouTube seems to be the only platform, and I've tried so hard, because there was a channel I wanted to completely block and not have anything presented to me. It's not even possible. You can't do it. You can block the channel and it stops them from being able to comment on your stuff. They'll still recommend the posts to you and the videos to you. Completely pointless button. I don't know why it exists. I actually think the onus needs to be here on in this case, Nintendo providing a review copy. It needs to be part of the embargo process that you can't post things like this until after the release date. There's no way you should be able to click onto YouTube and see absolutely everything about this game and see everything spoiled. there should be things that are kept secret. And I really think that, yeah, there's an ethical stance from like a content creator's perspective, but at the end of the day, I'm like me and you are content creators. We know the game. Like, we know you want to get the clicks, you want to get people watching your video,
Yeah,
and
that's
that's
why
what
that
does,
person
right?
did that, right? Like they
That's why
did
that
that.
person did it. Yeah.
Yeah, to get click-throughs for people who just wanted to see spoilers, right? Whereas, I think if the purpose of the content is supposed to be like a how-to or something like that, right? Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with posting all that content as long as it's clearly marked and it's not in the thumbnail, right? Like,
Yeah, but I don't think that should be up before the game's publicly available, which was in this case, right? It was before release, is what
I
Doc's question is. I don't think that you should have guides and spoilers and absolutely everything
I
visible online.
believe it launched day one, though. Correct me if I'm wrong. You might. I can't pull up the Discord because we're recording right now. So if you want to check, but I don't have the timestamp on that. I know that's what the question
It was November 17th was when it was posted. So I don't know when
did Pokemon come out? Is that
came out.
right? That might be that day.
November 18th. So it was
Okay.
a day earlier. And my guess is they probably downloaded the Japanese version and did that. I mean, that's another way they can
No,
do
or
it,
they
right?
had a
You can
review
download it from
copy and
another
the
region.
embargo lifted
Yeah.
the day before, right? And it's like, okay, the embargo's
but
up.
that's what I mean. That embargo should have like they usually have things in there that you please don't spoil past X point in the game.
Sure,
Like, we
sure.
don't want you to reveal the final boss battle. We don't want you to reveal this
That's the
story
thing,
arc.
though. Like, how-tos and guides don't. They're different content, right? Like, that is different than like commentary, right? Like, in a review, you're not supposed to spoil stuff, but you literally can't make a guide without spoiling the game, right? So
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. When it comes to guides, I mean, when the Doc posted, and the title of the video is literally just Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, all gym leader battles, and it's just
footage of
like
everything.
super cut of all of them. That's it. No, there's no how to in there. It's just
that's just footage.
like showing you.
Yeah, that's just raw footage. Yeah, so I don't know. That might be the case of somebody who just got, like you said, got the Japanese version and it like wasn't a review copy.
It illegally.
Yeah, so like in that case, like there's really no way to circumvent that unless Nintendo hits them with a strike,
Yeah, I mean, something's got to change when it comes to that, and I really do think that YouTube, in particular, needs to put like something in place for like mute filters, for example. Like,
sure.
I can on Twitter, I can mute Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and the majority of fans, I will say, are pretty good at tagging things. They'll tag when it's a spoiler. They'll tag when it's like a specific game, so you can mute it if you don't want to see it on your timeline. And like, I do that with TV shows, right? We're both big fans of Bake Off. I muted everything to do with that because I didn't want it to get spoiled for me because I didn't watch it live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think to me, like, really the only ethical issue I have with what happened with this person is that they did the thumbnail that they did, right? Because if they just had that same video up and it was like all the outlines of the gym leaders with question marks and like Doc didn't have anything spoiled for them, fair play, right? Like that, I don't have any ethical issue with that, right? It's more like having that shoved in the face of somebody who doesn't want it is like where that gets shitty, because some people want spoilers, some people don't care about spoilers, right? And like if you feel that way and you want to go see that footage, right, because maybe you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna pick it up, or I don't have a Switch or whatever, but I just kind of want to see, like, that's valid, right? Like that, if people want to watch that, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just more like, the person who's spoiling and posting those things without any thought for the people that don't want to see that stuff, and just
that's where the dick move comes in. And when it comes to walkthroughs and guides and things, that for me, they're crucial. Like there's a lot of times where I just won't finish a game if there wasn't a guide of it, where I would have just given up at that point, and I'd have been like, fuck this, I'll just move on to something else that I can solve the problem in. Elden Ring's the biggest example this year. Like I used countless guides or had friends help me through sections and areas, and I think it's fine to have guides and things live on day one, and that's different because you have to go hunting for the content usually, and they are usually pretty good at not showing it in thumbnails and stuff. And like that used to happen officially. You would have a game that came out and you'd have like the Prima guide that came alongside it that was like the official how-to guide of the game, or if you got stuck in any area, it would tell you, or in the case of Pokemon, it would tell you like all of the types and like all of the like super effective moves and things like that. So the guides have been around since the game's inception, really, since like the NES era, and I've got no issue with guides whatsoever.
Next question comes from Trendy Brendy, who wrote in and said, pitch a way to port, remake, or remaster older Nintendo games that only work on their old quote-unquote gimmicky consoles. I'm talking Nintendogs, Pokemon Rangers, Nintendo Land, and so on. Do you put a tacky second screen in a corner like Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and Wonderful 101 did? Consider hopping genres. Release the game with an expensive Wii U gamepad-like peripheral. Would love to hear your thoughts. Trendy Brendy.
So when it comes to Nintendogs, that should be a mobile game, and we've spoken about that for a long time. And I know Chewy wrote in and said the same
Slam
thing,
dunk,
that he
right?
feels
Yeah.
like
The fact that that's
it
not
should be a mobile game.
that they've just done nothing with that IP, and it's like when they were like, we're gonna get into mobile games, it's like this was one of the first ones you thought, right? Like,
Yeah, Nintendo Land, I think, could be it could be changed, and some of it could be done. Like you can take out some of the stuff that was touchscreen centric, because I know they did have games in there that worked with like the Wii remotes and stuff like that. You could do some of the cool stuff that Super Mario Party did, where you could connect two Nintendo Switches up, and maybe that's a solution for it, where you have one Nintendo Switch that's docked, and the second Nintendo Switch becomes like the gamepad style thing that you can use for some of those games. That might be a cool solution.
I kind of like the idea of a peripheral. Like I with the whole wanting to be able to, because like really that only becomes a problem if you need to play the game on the television, I guess. Well, no, because I guess you couldn't necessarily use the touchscreen of the Switch on some of those games because you'd need the dual screen experience. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I mean, I think that's like the problem with like the way that Nintendo designed consoles for a minute, where it's just like a lot of these games are hard to move forward without having that proprietary technology. So yeah, I don't know. I think having some kind of solution that either eliminates the need for that screen entirely, or having some kind of peripheral just to accommodate the 3 generations worth of very popular consoles they have that utilize that technology is probably the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that stuff like I'm looking at Pokemon Ranger, stuff like this should be a mobile game as well. Like it would be a slam dunk if they ported all of their old Pokemon games to mobile.
I think
They'd sell an absolute fortune.
I think there's a lot of games on the DS specifically, even more so than the 3DS, where like that would work. Where there are a lot of DS games where it's like you use the second screen to like just do touchscreen stuff, and it's like there's no reason you couldn't just put that on a longer screen, right? Or
Yeah,
whatever.
you just make it portrait where you have the two screens, and that is the way you control it. Even then, like I feel like for the parts where it's not fully touchscreen control, and it looks like Pokemon Ranger pretty much is, like you're drawing circles around Pokemon and things with the touchscreen. I feel like you can have like a way to move just by dragging your finger on the screen. Like mobile games have been doing this since like 2007 at this point. There should have been a solution. We should have had a Pokemon game like this on mobile by now, but you know, with the with the state of Pokemon on consoles at the moment, I'm not holding out much hope for that.
Yeah, and I think beyond that, there's really not much you can do aside from just like remake these games from the ground up, right? Like, I think unless you can have pieces pivot, and that's the thing, right? They would have to be remakes. Like, you can't just do ports. I think really the only way to enable a straight up porting process would be to have a touchscreen peripheral that you can just plug in to one of the USB ports and use as, like, and maybe
Or you make it handheld. You make it handheld only, and you do what Trenny Brenny said, which you have that. What did he call it?
the
Tacky second screen in a
yeah,
corner.
which I don't love that as a solution, and like, and I if you made like a cheap secondary, I don't know, it would be like a Wii U pad, right? Like Brendy said, right? Like you'd have to have
Yeah,
a gamepad
and they've
style
never sold
peripheral.
those separately.
Yeah.
Never ever sold those separately. So like I don't think that's a solution. I could see multiple switches being a solution, and their goal was every family member in the household has a Switch, right? They wanted everyone to
Yeah.
have their own individual Switch. That
I
could
mean,
be a goal for them to sell more.
that would be a fine solution if you could hook two Switches up and use them, together to
Yeah,
make that
one's
dual screen
like a
experience.
gamepad and one's attached to the screen, and that would be a way to get the Wii U games up and running.
But I
And
think,
then they had all of the DS games running in that way as well.
yeah, and then you could have DS, 3DS, or Wii U all work that way. But
I
yeah,
also think when you're in handheld, like you can fit like there's a decent real estate to fit two screens side by side. It'd be
but that's
strange
just the thing is
going
like
from up and down.
yeah, it just wouldn't really work. Like that's not the way that they were intended to be played, And it's like I think there are some games where you might get away with that, right? Like Pokemon might work that way, but that would also be awkward, right? Because then you have a screen that, and this is this perfect visual aid I have here, right? Like even on the original DS, right? Like the size of the screens is different. So like you have this second screen where you have just like, 3-4 buttons that you can press to pick Pokemon attacks, and then that's the same size or roughly the same size as like the actual graphic.
That's
Like
where time just needs to be put in, right? Where you would, if
you
you
have
made a
some kind of hot
remake,
swap.
you would, or well, but I mean, if you had a remake rather than emulating these things, because Citra allows you to like switch between things, which is a 3DS emulator.
Yeah.
But if you would, if it is literally just a menu on the screen, you would overlay that over the top. I think I don't know. I genuinely don't know what the solution is for this, and it's tough because they were doing gimmicks for decades, like
Well, it's like
all
the
the way
thing
back to like the Virtual Boy.
with the Wii games, it doesn't matter because like the Joy-Cons still work enough like a Wii remote where you can just be like, okay, like you just mimic that functionality. I think it's the dual screen situation where like I honestly think Brendy's idea of having a peripheral is the thing that makes the most sense in terms of like making it not a development lift, right? Because if you create this peripheral, then you could ideally create a situation where DS, 3DS, and Wii U games are all immediately playable as ports, and you don't have to do any heavy lifting, and you can just
Yeah.
have them
I
work.
don't know what that looks like. I feel like that's so expensive. Does it
Yeah,
attach? Does it make it like foldable, flippable? Because like they're gonna want to have it work in handheld mode and dock mode, so it's gonna need to clip on or come off at
I
somehow.
don't think you have to
It
connect it.
just,
I think you literally make it a controller.
I mean, you could do that with Wii U, and like the problem is then it takes away such a huge chunk of their player base. Like everyone that bought a Switch Lite can't use this peripheral because they're not going to connect it to a TV, really.
No, you could though, right? Because you just put it in tabletop mode, and then you just hold the
Yeah,
second screen. I'm
I
not
just
saying that it's like ideal, but I
unless
think
it's the other way around, and like the screen you're holding is the touch screen and the second screen. But then how do you like beam wirelessly to that second screen? That's just something they'd have to figure out as well. Like rather than it being, because it would
yeah.
need to be plugged in
I mean,
somehow.
they did figure that out though, right? Is that's how the Wii U gamepad worked? All you'd have
Yeah,
to
but that had like hardware built into the Wii U base in order to send it wirelessly through a proprietary
true.
radio signal. So it wasn't like, oh, we can just magically do this over Wi-Fi all of a
Right,
sudden.
right. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's like you either figure out a physical solution so that you don't need to engineer each game to work, or you engineer each game to work, and that's all you can do, baby.
I think that's what you have to do, or you just have to accept the fact that you've got the tacky second screen in the corner, like Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and Wonderful 101.
Yeah. All right. Doc wrote in again and said, leapfrogging off Brendy's question, if you had an infinite budget, what game / series would you remake / reboot?
A Pokemon. I would really like to give it to a team that knows what they're doing and has care for like what it looks like, and has shitloads of cash, so they can make it like they can spend as long as they want on it. They can have as much money as they want, and just like cook it for as long as you need.
Yeah.
Make me a true, fully open world Pokemon game.
You still wouldn't like it.
Do you know what? If it was a full open world Pokemon game with voice acting, a compelling story, it didn't look like crap. It actually had like a good gameplay. Like I liked Arceus's gameplay to a point, but it then got grindy and I kind of fell off it. But Let's Go like I was hooked on that. I liked just catching things. It needs to cater for both, I think. But I feel like Pokemon is the one for me that's just like, right, we need to press pause on this because Zelda and Mario both had their like pause moment. Breath of the Wild was Zelda's. I feel like Mario Odyssey was a real pause moment for Mario.
I
We
mean,
went
both of
from
those
3D World over to Mario Odyssey, and it was like, wow, this was like a huge departure, an absolute slam dunk.
those are great examples too, because when you think about what the previous entry was in each franchise, and not totally right, because like there's the 2D stuff for both of them as well. But if you talk about what's the last 3D Zelda, what's the last 3D Mario before both of those games, they're years apart. Like it was a long time since we had a proper 3D Mario or a 3D Zelda, and I think that they both came back and had a long time away and felt like a breath of fresh air. Like, yeah, you're right. They felt like game changers. They felt like, oh, like these series are relevant in like a way that they haven't been in a long time.
And that is what I really want for Pokemon. Like I liked the Game Boy Pokemon games. And I feel like like Pokemon has everything in it that I should enjoy as a gamer, but for some reason it just doesn't click with me. And I don't think that's entirely my fault. I think like part of it is my fault. I just don't like it, and that's fine. But I do think that the game with a little bit more special sauce and some extra time and some extra money really could shine. It could be a true showpiece for Nintendo and for Game Freak or whoever develops it. But I have a hard time believing that if any of Nintendo's internal studios developed something that looked like Scarlet and Violet, that they would have shipped. I can't see it.
Yeah.
And I really want someone like them to take it over with a really big budget.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there are other candidates that I can think of, but when it comes to like when the question is like to reboot or remake, it's like yeah, not without a doubt, I would say Pokemon. I would love to uh be able to make executive decisions about that IP more than anything else, I think, just because I think it's clear the path, right? To get it right, you know? Oh, did I lose you? Oh, no, okay, you're good. I think like what Pokemon needs to do to be better is clear, and it's not a big ask, right? Like it's a bar that every other game in its genre is expected to clear, right, to some level. And yeah, like I'd love to take, like if I have infinite budget, right, like I would probably clean house at Game Freak and like try to like be like, okay, like what is the problem here, right, and get down to it, right, and it's like where are there examples of issues with the timeline and the lack of resources and all those things, and where is it an issue of a lack of the required talent, right? Because like I think when it comes to like like the 3D environments and all that stuff, right, like that's something that like we all I think have mostly agreed for a long time, right, where it's just like yeah, like Pokemon's 3D world design is just not up to snuff, right, not on a technical level and not on an artistic level, arguably in certain ways, right? And I think that I would love to be able to bring in, either like young, hungry talent that wants to be like, let's dig in and spend 5 or 6 years trying to make a Pokemon game that is as ambitious as something like Persona 5 or like Fire Emblem Three Houses. Or as the other prestige JRPGs, and check those boxes, right, of being like, okay, like let's do something that's open world, let's do something with like a meaty, engaging story, let's have voice acting, let's have like a cast of characters that like people love as much as people love the Phantom Thieves or whatever their chosen house was in Fire Emblem, or like Pokemon has such good art direction, right? Like broadly, like Pokemon themselves are, so well thought out and beloved the world over, obviously. And it's like we've had anime and manga and movies and all these things that have casts of characters that people really like and connect with, and It's not hard to think about what the quote unquote perfect Pokemon game looks like. I think it's truly an attainable goal if you have unlimited budget and unlimited time, right?
Oh yeah, and in my eyes, I want it to look like an anime game. I want it to be stylized. I don't want it to be realistic and hyper realistic and going
No, you
down
want it
like
more
the
like Breath of the Wild.
yeah, I want it like Breath of the Wild or even like a Nino Kuni where they took like Studio
Yes.
Ghibli's
Yeah.
influence, that kind of thing. I want it to look like what the Arceus cover art looked like. I want them to be able to make that game, and that was clearly their vision, right? This is what we want the game to look like. Here's the key art, here's the concept art, this is what the game's going to look like. Well, let's make that game. Let's have the technical prowess and the time and the budget to be able to do that. Whether that's feasible on Nintendo Switch, I personally think it is, looking
Yeah.
at some of the other stylized games on that system. I
Xenoblade,
don't know.
right? Like Xenoblade.
Yeah, well,
Beautiful.
there's like, yeah, but even like Breath of the Wild, right? I still think that's one of the best looking games on that system
Sure.
because of the art direction and because of the style
Same
they
with
went
Odyssey.
with. It wasn't super realistic. Yeah, same as Odyssey. Kirby this year looks phenomenal as well.
Great.
Again, a stylized game. You don't have to go down the realistic route. And I feel
mean,
like,
dude, if you want to even just like pick a more one-to-one, like Pokemon Snap, like new Pokemon Snap looked great and had a really strong art direction and cool environments, and it's like the bar is not high.
That was made by Bandai Namco. So, I mean, I'd be happy to let them have a shot at a mainline Pokemon game.
They made Pokken too. That was cool.
Yeah, they must have made. Didn't they make Nino Kuni as well?
Yeah, that's a Namco Bandai
thing,
isn't it?
Give them a go.
I think it's
they own all the
Studio,
Tales of series.
Is it Team 19? I think is the developer though. Namco, I think, just published it for Nino Kuni.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but they do the Tales of series, and that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's what like that's what we're looking for, right? Like it's like just a Pokemon with the same level of like thought and care put into developing a cast and a the world within a region that you see in any other prestige JRPG. Like that's the name of the game. Like if I'm picking a studio, I'd love Atlas to get a shot at it, right? Like I think or maybe not even Atlas, right? Like the team that just spun off, right? The guys that made Persona 5, right? Like let's take them and be like,
the P Studio, right? It's the P Studio.
Yeah, but some of those people left, right? Like the team that's working on the next Persona is not that same team. They're working on a new IP now, I think, is the thing.
Oh, well, that's fine. I mean, I think the next Persona's still going to be in a good good place.
Yeah, that's not to say that
I was really interested to see Wakahula wrote in, and we didn't have time to touch on it, but about the fact that Atlas did make like a Pokemon competitor back in the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd like to see them have another shot now that they've made Persona.
It'd be good. I'd definitely be down for that. All right, so let's jump into our talking point for the week. This comes from a question from Left Eye Lazy on the Discord that got us both thinking quite a bit. The question is, what drove you to the Switch in 2022, and did it keep you there? I haven't played a game longer than 10 hours on my Switch this year. Haven't finished a game. I consider myself a casual gamer, but there's nothing on Switch in 2022 that I can't experience something similar on my PS5. What am I missing as a Nintendo fan? Great question. Love this question.
Yeah, I mean, I really wish I could answer that for you, Left Eye Lazy, because I struggle with it myself. There's only three Nintendo games I bought this year, which were, because I forget that Arceus actually came out this year, Kirby, Pokemon Arceus, and Splatoon 3. And I really thought Splatoon 3 was going to be the one that hooked me. And out of the three of them, the most time I played was actually in Pokemon, and then it was Kirby. But I never finished either of those games either. I haven't really played a ton of Splatoon, and my indie machine has moved from Switch to Steam Deck. So when I'm not playing those titles, there's not really a lot I am playing other than some of the evergreen titles. Like when friends come around, we'll play some Mario Party or some Mario Kart. But yeah, not a lot has driven me to the Switch this year, which is really disappointing for me. But I know for you that's a different story because of Pokemon.
Yeah, but it's not a much different story. Like, I think I feel the same way as you. I just had two games that spoke to me more, right? Where, like, so looking at the list of games that came out this year, we had Pokemon Legends Arceus, we had Kirby and the Forgotten Land, we had Nintendo Switch Sports, Mario Strikers, Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and then Kirby's Dream Buffet, Splatoon 3, Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, Bayonetta 3, and then Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So, like, when you actually get down to it and you list it out, it's not an insignificant number of games. Like, it's not a bad list, right? Like, some of these were legit games. But I find myself feeling very similar to the two of you, I think, where I obviously I put a lot of time into Pokemon Arceus. That will definitely be on my top 10 game of the year this year. I think it'll probably even be in my top 5. It's one of my favorite Pokemon games of all time. I really, really enjoyed it quite a bit. You know, that's one of the big games for me this year. Kirby and the Forgotten Land, I think, hit a similar bar for me where I did beat that game. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really, really refreshing change of pace for the Kirby franchise, which is one that I've been a big fan of for a long time. And I think, for the last several entries, we've been in kind of like, this spiral of Kirby games just being too easy and kind of feeling like they were going back to the well and just adding a new gimmick every time. And I thought that this game really felt like special, right? So those two games were things that, to answer Left Eye Lazy's question, those brought me to the Switch and they kept me there in 2022. That said, once I beat Kirby, which was in March, right? That game was March 25th. So the longest I was playing that was maybe the first week of April. I think I beat it pretty quickly. Oh, you're muted, Steve. You're muted.
And I was playing that alongside Elden Ring. So
Yes.
for me, Elden Ring captured me a lot more than it did you, and so I'm sure Left Eye Lazy too, because I know he was also playing Elden Ring. I feel like because of that game, that was the reason I didn't finish. I didn't finish Kirby,
Yeah, and like fair enough.
and then my Steam Deck showed up, so I
Right.
was like, I want to play on this hot new thing, this new device, and I've just spent all of my time playing indies there.
And that's what I was about to drive to, right? Is like I got the Steam Deck initially thinking that it was going to kind of be an experiment and it was going to be this thing that I kind of noodled around with here and there, but that I wasn't going to spend a significant amount of time on it. And it has completely dethroned what the Switch was for me, right? Like this is the least I've ever played my Nintendo Switch since it came out in 2017. It went from being a console I used to engage with every day to I used to engage with every week to now I literally haven't touched it since July, right? Which was when Xenoblade came out. And I played Xenoblade so probably August is actually when I last touched it. And I lost interest in Xenoblade, and I think a big part of it is because I don't want to play games on my Switch anymore. Because as much as I was enjoying Xenoblade, you can go back and listen to the conversations we were having about it, right? Like, I like the cast, I like the gameplay systems, like, it wasn't perfect. I think that there are things about the game itself that didn't help me maintain my interest because it is one of those really big, sprawling JRPGs, and I don't think it breaks things up as well as some of the games that I prefer, right? Like Persona or Fire Emblem, that have things I think better segmented. But that's a conversation for another episode. But the thing that really put me off was that I just wasn't enjoying the experience of playing it on the Switch. Because playing it in handheld mode wasn't an option for me because I know everybody who's a Xenoblade fan, like if Chewy was here, he'd be screaming from the rafters that it was a huge improvement. And I don't mean to take away from that. But it was still in 540 in handheld, and it just didn't look good. And it's a pretty game, and I want to see it look good. And playing it on my TV was fine, but, it's a big, long, slow game with a lot of loading screens and just things that, like, I feel spoiled by on like Murphy said, like on the PlayStation or on the Xbox or on the Steam Deck even, right? Where like I'm not having those same quality of life issues. So it makes me and this was a huge thing that you and I talked about when, the quote unquote next gen, right? The current gen now kicked off was I don't care if they put a single quote unquote new gen, next gen, whatever game out. The quality of life of these consoles and how fast they are, how better it is to play on them made the investment worth it for me. And as time goes on, I am feeling the age of the Switch more and more. And I think when those consoles were new, that was part of the equation for me of like, okay, I don't like playing on the Switch as much as I like playing on these new consoles. A, because they're shiny and new, but B, because just quality of life wise, it's so much quicker to pick them up, turn them on, and start playing a game, right? And just be in it, which is what I want. And when you then add the Steam Deck of it all on top of it, right? Where it's like, okay, so now the one unique value proposition that Nintendo had for me, which is that we have a hybrid handheld console, right? Okay, well, the Steam Deck can do that now, right? And so it then becomes, okay, so the only compelling reason for me to pick up my Switch in 2022 was console exclusive games. And of the, several that came out that do speak to my interests, right? Like, I was interested in Mario plus Rabbids, but I didn't get around to it because it had a lot of competition, and I'd rather play stuff on other platforms right now. And, I mean, Pokemon, right? It's the first time I've ever skipped a Pokemon game, and Lord knows how long, right? Like, so it's like, I think it's a mixed bag of them having games that are good, but not like so incredibly, through the roof good that you can't not play them. And there being so many other options on platforms that I'm more excited to engage with right now. And I hate saying that, right? Like as a Nintendo fan, we have a friggin' Nintendo podcast. And I'm sitting here like I'm not excited to play on Switch anymore. And I'm so desperate for Nintendo to, to hit us with something fresh, right? And whether that's the look at the next console or a game like, Tears of the Kingdom that hopefully is one of those games that is like, you got to pay attention to this, right? Because to me, the only game they put out, I'd say 2 games they put out this year that really hit that bar were Arceus and Xenoblade, right? And like I loved Kirby, but the fact that like a lot of people didn't play Kirby is not surprising to me, right? Like is what it is. But like,
yeah, I mean they're sorely missing from the Game Awards Game of the Year this year.
right?
They haven't had a slam dunk hit like that compared to, say, Sony or FromSoft or anyone like that. And I think that's a real shame, especially, and I think it goes to show that probably Tears of the Kingdom for me is probably going to be the last big title on the Switch, at least on this Switch. And I really do hope that they announce something that launches alongside it, because I think it's time. Let's get the holiday season out of the way, sell the consoles you've got. You don't want to cannibalize sales for your console, especially with, like, you've got your Black Friday deal that you bundle that you try every single year. Get that out of the way, and then in January, let's have a good look at what's coming in the future for the Switch, because I feel like we do not know. Other than Tears of the Kingdom, it's very unclear as to what else is in store for Switch fans. And whether there's a new console or whether we've got to wait yet another year for one, I don't know. I don't know if I can wait yet another year, or if I'm going to want to continue to invest in games as much as I have. I've probably got like 50 plus games if you count downloaded games on the Switch. It's the most games I've bought on any console ever, I think. I've bought a lot of games on the Switch.
You think it's only 50? I bet you got more than that.
Yeah, probably a lot more than that. Looking at my shelf, it's a lot more than that. I've invested hundreds, if not thousands, into the Switch, and like I really want to continue playing there. Like the amount of £50 games I've bought, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, and I think with the Steam Deck, like it's become now where it's like, all right, well, like indies were a huge part of my time on Switch, right? When I was waiting for the next big Nintendo game, it's like, what's the next Switch game I'm going to pick up? What's the next
Yeah,
indie
but
thing?
often you are waiting for the next indie, right? This year's hot indie's been Vampire Survivors. It's not on the Switch. It's on the Xbox, but it's not on PlayStation or Switch. And they've obviously got some kind of exclusivity agreement there. I don't know if it's ever going to come. I would imagine it's a timed exclusive.
But
And
now
that's
it's
a
like,
real
why would I
shame.
wait?
Again,
Right? Because it's like
it's like, why would you
they're
wait?
on
Because
Steam
you
Deck.
can just buy it. Yeah, and you can buy it for like $3. It's a ridiculously cheap game. It's like the hottest indie game of the moment. So if you want to be involved in that conversation and you want to play it now, you're gonna play it on the Steam Deck, or you're gonna play it on PC, or you're gonna play it on Xbox. It's on Game Pass.
Yeah, and
So,
I think to pull it back to the question, like, what are you missing? I think you're tapped into a pretty common feeling. I think it's clear that the fervor around Nintendo's offerings has died down compared to what it's been the last couple of years, and I think that has everything to do with the fact that the Switch is showing its age and people are kind of ready for Nintendo to play some new cards, and I think that's the thing though, right? Is like, when I say people, I mean like us, right? Because it's like the Switch is still selling incredibly. People are still buying a brand new Switch with a copy of Mario Kart. You're muted.
and non-enthusiasts, like I was talking to my friend earlier, who doesn't listen to Nintendo podcasts. He's just, he buys a Switch game every now and again. He picked up the new Pokemon. He was telling me how much he loved it.
Uh-huh.
Not once did he mention, oh, there's this bug, there's that bug. It's like got performance issue. He doesn't give a shit. He's just there and he's playing his favorite franchise, a Pokemon game. Pokemon was the reason he bought the Switch in the first place. When they announced the first like full mainline proper Pokemon game for the Switch, which was Sword and Shield, he went and he bought a Switch. Like that, basically that day, he was like, "I'm getting a Switch now."
Yeah. I know a lot of people like
And
that. I've had multiple conversations with friends who are like, "You playing the new Pokemon? I'm loving it." I'm just like, "Oh, well, yeah, I haven't. I don't know. Maybe later."
yeah, which is crazy for me. Like this is the first Pokemon game you've ever skipped, I would imagine, like, or at least for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, like, literally when I was young, like I had a period, right, where like I was like,
Well, you didn't have your own money then, I presume, or if you did have your own money, it was like limited.
yeah, but it was like, more specifically, I intentionally skipped Fire Red and Leaf Green when they were new, because I was like at an age where I was like getting, it was like, oh, Pokemon's like for kids, and like I'm starting to become a teen or a preteen, and I'm getting like picked on for things, right? So I was like, oh, okay, I guess I won't pay attention to Pokemon anymore. That was something that when I was in high school and then had friends that were nerds, it was like, oh, okay, cool, like this is a normal thing again. And that was Gen 4, right? So like I skipped literally those games and I've gone back and played them 10 times over, right? And then like same with Gen 5, where like I didn't finish Black and White or Black and White 2 because I didn't care for them. But I tried them, so like it's literally happened, but it's literally happened 2 times ever, and like, and not really, it's actually 1 time ever. And then with the caveat that I bought it and played it later. So, yeah, and
I mean, well,
I don't know with this one.
well, as per is the curse of our podcast, Nintendo put a statement out just as we finished recording the last episode, saying that they're aware of the issues and they're going to patch
Yeah.
it. And I basically apologized. I feel like that's the first time they've ever done that, and hopefully it means they are taking it seriously and will fix the game. And maybe that's the point where you're just like, oh, there's all these patches now. It's fixed all the main issues that people had with the game. I'm gonna jump in and I'm gonna pick it up and I'm gonna play it when there's maybe a bit of a lull in early next year.
And
But
like, I
early
hope
next
so.
year is looking solid again. Like I feel like there's going to be a lot there.
I genuinely hope that happens, right? Because I want to play that game right now. Like, I'm bummed that there's a new Pokemon out and I can't be driven to care about it, right? Where like it's just not grabbing me right now, and like I don't like that feeling. Like I have such a torn feeling about the fact that I just am like, whatever, like. And the fact that I am in general kind of feeling that way, that level of malaise about what Nintendo's doing lately is a bummer, and I want to see them come out and have years like they did with with the Switch at launch, where it's like you can't not pay attention to Nintendo and what they're doing right now, right? Like it feels like the biggest thing on the horizon from Nintendo right now is a friggin' movie. You
can't have a slam dunk year like that all the time, especially as you come towards the end of a generation.
Yeah.
Usually, though, I would say a generation ends with a bang rather than a fizzle. That's why I feel like Zelda is going to be the game that ends the generation. It's
Probably.
like, right, here's another console that we launched Zelda with. We launched Breath of the Wild with the Switch.
Yeah.
It's the Switch 2. Enjoy.
I think you're right. I hope you're right. So let's close this out. Last question of the day. This one comes from Olaf from over on the Discord. He said, "What unannounced game do you think will happen in 2023 for the Switch?" And one answer. Because I got to go.
Mario Odyssey 2. Or whatever the sequel is to that.
Okay. The rumored Donkey Kong game is going to be my guess.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
No, you know what? No. I take it back. I want that to be the answer, but my real answer is a Pokemon game. Because we can't get away from these fucking things.
That's cheating. But yeah, that's definitely going to happen.
It'll be black and white remake.
You're not having that as one of the predictions for next year. That you can't just have a Pokemon game. I'm not letting you have that.
You can't tell me no.
Guarantee.
If it's not announced, that's a prediction.
A Call of Duty then. Done. There's going to be a new Call of Duty.
Well, you'll be wrong because there isn't going to be one this year, right? So go ahead.
There'll be a new season of Fortnite.
That's not. You can't do that one. That's bullshit.
Oh, I can't do that. Okay.
No, that's totally different. All right, you know what? We'll save it for the predictions episode. You absolute monster. All right, guys. Well, thank you. Oh, whoa, hold on. Whoa, oh God, I almost spilled a Diet Coke there. Good God. Okay, well, thank you guys for joining us here for another episode of Nintendo Noise. This has been a fun one. Thank you to everybody who wrote in. Remember, if you want to write in, it's questions@flipscreen.games. Head over to our website, flipscreen.games, where you can find links to all the places we are over the web, how you can get involved, how you can tune in to all the other stuff that we do. So, however you choose to be involved, thanks for tuning in. I've been Pete. He's been Steve. We'll see you next week for episode 70 of Nintendo Noise. Take it easy, everybody.